Hello everybody, this is just me quickly explaining what this video is about because it's very different from anything I've made before. So the idea behind this basically is to tell an original story, to do something on a game, to play through a certain bit on a game and make an original story out of it. There's many different games this could work for. In my head I'm thinking things like Crusader Kings 3, I'm thinking Spore, even The Sims, like there's lots of games this could work for. But basically using what happened and telling an original story with that. So basically what you're getting here is, I suppose it's a bit like an audio book of a short story. And it is only a short story, it's only a couple of pages long, but it's an audio book of a short story, but with the visual as well. So it's narrated. A little different from anything I've done before, but I hope you enjoy it. If you do, please do let me know in the comments, Discord, on the streams, whatever, what you think. Any constructive criticism will be appreciated because this is very, very new. I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing. But I like it. I like the script. I like what I come up with, and I hope you do too. There are many words that could be used to describe a man such as Frank Miller. If he were asked, he would likely use words such as dashing, handsome, or brave. Those are the words he would choose. For those who saw him, they may use a term such as generic. For those who knew him well, though, they may use the term bumbling, and it was certainly an accurate descriptor of the man. Despite that bumbling nature, though, Frank Miller had managed to fulfill his dream. Frank Miller had become a police officer. In the old, or at least old by US standards, city of Brighton, Frank Miller began his very first shift. Thoughts of stopping murderers and drug runners had filled his mind, until the moment he was ordered to focus on issuing parking tickets instead. This was not the dream he had in mind. Still, after some aimless wandering around the station, he found his way into the city and was ready to do his duty. His first shift went exceptionally well, were you to ask Frank Miller. After all, he did issue many parking tickets, and that was exactly what he was ordered to do. In the mind of his superiors, though, his performance was less than stellar. While he did indeed issue many tickets, he also had very little understanding of what constituted a parking violation. One may almost be forgiven for thinking he did not study this in the slightest before his first day on the job. Still, he managed to complete his shift without fining too many innocent people, so considering his significant lack of understanding of the job, it could have gone a lot worse. While a still less than ideal officer, the decision was made to send him to Beaufort Landing, and even worse, to give him a gun. Thankfully, it was just a radar gun, so it was impossible for him to do too much damage. As before with the parking tickets, nobody ever taught him how to use a radar gun, and that certainly showed in his performance. He also committed a lot of jaywalking offences while performing his duty, and should be thankful that there were no competent police officers around to witness this. In truth, he never actually saw another officer, and perhaps that explains how he was able to secure this position. The sheer desperation of the city for more officers, so bad that they would take anything. Despite this desperation and Frank Miller's significant lack of police training, he mostly managed to do his job adequately, even if he did decide to stop and perform magic while in the middle of his shift. The man was so adequate, and the city so desperate for law enforcement officers, that he was even granted more power in a decision that can only go very well for everyone. His first shift in Chester was once again issuing parking tickets, a suitable task for one so incompetent, but before long he had been asked to manage an accident. It started well until he gave a man an accident report before he had written it. After that, he decided to give crime scene photography a go, and surprised everyone by actually being good at it. Even Frank Miller was surprised. Unfortunately, afterwards it proved to be something of a boring shift for Frank Miller, culminating in him doing whatever it took to deal with his boredom, such as exploring the city, visiting the local park, and then taking on a shift as a snack vendor. Perhaps he is not best suited to be a police officer, but regardless of that lack of aptitude, he managed to finish his shift. Many would consider it unwise to give a police officer that has yet to understand the know-how of the parking ticket or the radar gun a car, but that was the decision that his superiors made for reasons known only to them. Despite that, he managed to start the shift well, even making an arrest for having a fake ID while managing an accident. However, that shift began to go wrong when the officer managed to crash headfirst into a tree coming the other direction. Unperturbed by the bonnet of his car lifted so high he couldn't see, he continued to drive around, speeding despite the lack of visibility and the fact that he was actually hunting for speeders, and in an attempt to pull over a vehicle for no particular reason, he had another accident. The third one happened a little while later, and this time the accident he had to manage was his own. He was okay though, because he traded in the broken police car for a British police car. Why the US Police Department has a British police car is still unclear. He managed to bring it home with only a moderate amount of damage, an impressive feat considering he drove at 80 miles an hour in a 35 limit area. Considering his recklessness, the fact that he returned alive is something of a victory. Alcombe decided they wanted the officer to look for speeders, an unwise decision, but still one they made. A wise decision they made was to equip him with something he couldn't do much damage with, a sign. After pulling over drivers at a routine traffic stop, he took his battered police car, at this point people have stopped asking how that happened, back onto the road. He was successful in his job, managing to make an arrest for driving under the influence. The next accident he attended managed to take a while because additional cars continued to crash into the crash that had already happened. With the reckless driving that many show here, perhaps Frank Miller will have an excuse for all his crashes. All we know is that he has had a long 5 shifts and he's looking forward to going home and doing absolutely nothing. The city is relieved, knowing that finally there will be competent police officers taking over. However, they shouldn't relax too much, because Frank Miller will return, and if they're lucky, perhaps he will even have more power.